So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Makoto Suematsu. It is my greatest honor and pleasure to be here, and thank you very much. And please let me say I am not a specialist of the social implementation science, but let me speak very briefly. First of all, our funding organization is was born in a very crazy manner. Actually, I used to be a biochemist, and Prime Minister Abe suddenly asked me to unify the three different funding agencies into one and only system for biomedical sciences. It happened 3.5 years ago. And despite using the same Japanese currency, our funding agency in Japan was totally divided into multiple systems, at least three major systems. And one is coming from Ministry of Education, another one is Ministry of Health and Welfare, and another one is a Ministry of Economy and Trading and Industry. So it seems very, very simple to make these three systems into one, but that's a very tough. It was tough. And actually, I was so surprised to see the last year, the Korean funding agency, they are thinking about a Korean NIH. They are trying to build up. But they have 6 different funding agencies in this country. And if you go to Sweden, they are very famous because of the quality of the choice of the Nobel Prize. But they have 10. What's happened? And I would like to speak what is happening. And I never go in detail, but I was a biochemist. It is something like a request from Prime Minister Abe. So mix the carbohydrate, lipid, and amino acid to produce ATP without mitochondria or Krebs cycle. That's terrible, because we don't have any enzymatic systems at all. But I fully recognize that our most important mission is to make up a very efficient enzyme system to mix up different systems and different parties for catalysis. That is my thinking. And if you pay attention to what is happening in Japan, as you know, I'm sorry, this is very, very complicated. But please pay attention to the right lower map. This is very interesting. This is the yellow dot indicate where the supercentenarian lives in Japan. It is very interesting map. And we have already at least 0.7 million centenarian people. And you can divide into 3 categories if you pay attention to the supercentenarians, centenarians. Those who are over 110 is called supercentenarians. And those from 105 to 110, they are called semi-supercentenarians. And those over 100, less than 105, they are called young centenarians. What is happening? And we have nothing to do. And I'm sorry to show you another very important slide. I'm sorry, this is written in Japanese, because this figure was drawn not by myself, but by Dr. Hasegawa, who used to be a bureaucrat of the Ministry of Health and Welfare. This is a very famous picture. You can see here the 1868, when the Japanese government, the modern government, was built up. So left side of this point indicate the Shogun era. That is more complicated. And you can plot here those who are over 50 years old. And another fraction, that is those for less than 50 years old. So at the beginning of Meiji era, we have almost 80% of the younger people, less than 50, and only 15 or 20% goes to those over 50. I can say that this is a pattern of the 19th century's type demographic population. But what is happening later on? You can see here the abrupt increase at the beginning of 1980. It's the beginning of the very, very strange things. And actually, because of the overcoming the infectious diseases, and as you know, that we are enjoying a whole nation social insurance for the medicine. So because of this, that we are going to enjoy the increase in the demographic population. But on the other hand, the problem is the decreasing newborn children. So as a result of this, the prediction by Dr. Hasegawa clearly indicated that in the year of 2040, we are going to, like this, so that indicates almost 60% of the whole demographic population in this country goes to the 60%, and the rest of the 40% is just those who are below 50. So that means that we have to recognize we are in the middle of the transition, crazy transition state. And if the government think about, how we can adapt to the present status, no way. We need to think about what is happening in 2040 or later. And this is not the exceptional example of Japan. Within 10 years, not only Japan, but also approximately 30 different countries, including South Europe and Germany, and many Southeast Asian countries, they also suffer from this. And gradation of the transition is more steeper in China rather than Japan. So we all suffer. And what is happening if we pay attention to Japan? And we have 47 very complicated prefecture systems. And you can see here the heat map, which suffered from the super aging status. This is the present status. The latest information came from the 2015, 3 years ago. What is happening later? Like this. That's very terrible. And what should we do? And how we can design the medical development, not only medical development, but also the social infrastructure, how we can design together. So we need to aggregate all different knowledge and ideas in order to overcome such crazy status. So I would like to show you another crazy status in Japan. That is I would like to focus on medical research and development. As you know, many researchers are very much fond of the genome research. There is a machine called the next generation sequencer. You can put the sample and you can get the answer. This is very easy and cheaper and cheaper. And the Japanese government allocated a huge money for genome analysis. At the beginning of genome research, under the strong initiative of the Dr. Francis Collins, who is still the head of the National Institute of Health in the United States, they are very successful. And we can understand how the human being are designed in a genomic basis. It is good. But after that, the government decided to support the Millennium Project, and they allocated the huge money, and accordingly, we bought huge number of the next generation sequencer all over university, particularly the one of the biggest university in Tokyo. I never say its name. And as a result of this, within the next 2 decades, we have plenty of the number of the people's genome information. However, they are perfectly divided into individuals. And now you can see here that at least 3 different colors, blue one, orange one. Orange one means orange registry in the Ministry of Health and Welfare. And the blue one is those who are supported by Ministry of Education. And there is no standardization. Each individual researcher just would like to design the prospective genome cohort study according to his or her own interest. And accordingly, that there is no unification, standardization. They are totally fragmented. And if you sum up the number of the people who participate in this genome analysis, so we can have as many as 360,000 people genome data, but they are totally fragmented. And we have nothing to do to unify this, aggregate these, in order to find out a very new finding for the 2040. So how these people suffered from diseases. So we needed to think about how we can organize and how we can aggregate, integrate whatsoever, but no answer yet. So under these circumstances, AMED was born. And our rate of success of the acceptance is about as small as 15%, and 85% proposal were rejected. So that indicates that 85% of the community is my enemy. And the rest of the 15%, they also complain, why my budget is so small? So accordingly, the 100% is enemy. I'm very happy to see this. And another important point from me is the balkanization among the different researchers. I'd like to show you and how we can overcome, and hopefully we will have a discussion about that. What balkanization is. So there is a very strange picture in the left upper side, and young people never understand, nothing to do to understand what is going on here. And it was actually happened in Tokyo many, many years ago. And in the right side, you can see he is now the congressman, whose name is Antonio Inoki. He used to be the champion of professional wrestling. On the other hand, you can see the Muhammad Ali in the left side. He is the strongest professional boxer. And they simply thought, which one is stronger? And they want to know, okay? And they decided to make a match, the martial arts match, which is the fighting between the different martial arts. That is the very first beginning match in the world. What was happening is very, very strange. Inoki fully understand. If he received the one punch from the Muhammad Ali, it is good enough to kill him within 1 second. On the other hand, Muhammad Ali knew 3 seconds might be good enough to be killed once Muhammad Ali was laid down by Antonio Inoki. Antonio Inoki is a genius of the joint dislocation. How can I say? I don't know. But he is very skillful. So what was happening is the following. 60,000 people are watching around them. And Inoki tried to lay him down all the way, and just use the kick to damage the Muhammad Ali's knee, because it is good enough to lay down Muhammad Ali. On the other hand, Muhammad Ali tried to, flying like a butterfly, but escaping from Antonio Inoki all the way. So accordingly, there is one sleeping fighter, and another one is running around the sleeping guy, and no physical contact. And such situation is always happening in medical research and development, okay? And a sequencer versus physician. What is this? The sequencers is not the name of the machine, but those who are very much interested in the genome analysis as a basic science. ATGC makes them happy. But that's all. But a physician, they worry about how we should take care of the patients and the families in front of them. But they have no time to enjoy the medical sciences. Accordingly, there is a huge gap between these two parties. That's terrible. And that disturbs the social implementation of how to save the patients. Another one, I don't like to explain in detail the scientist versus bureaucrat. They are speaking the same Japanese, but we have nothing to do to communicate. And I'm brave enough to say another thing, the university versus university. It is really interesting to know the Kyoto University is very famous. The quality of university, it is our pride. However, it is really interesting. There are 3 national universities in near here. Not only Kyoto, but also Osaka and Kobe. 3 universities. They have never ever organized one and only symposium by collaborating together among the 3 universities. They are very, very competitive. That's very strange if I see from the Tokyo. Okay? And another one, what is the problem of science? How the social implementation becomes true. We need to learn from the deep space science. They are using one and only telescope, such as the Hubble telescope, which is moving around our planet and collecting the data of the deep space science by one telescope. And these collected data are shared very beautifully among the different deep space scientists in the planet. That is a data sharing. And the time for use of this telescope is determined by how each country allocate the money for supporting the maintenance of the telescope. It is beautiful. Accordingly, the many deep space scientists try to collaborate. For example, the Japan and Spain, and Canada and Spain whatsoever, in order to correct the summing up size of the budget for supporting the maintenance. It is fair. This is data sharing. And why we cannot do the data sharing? Because in medicine, you can see here the one gentleman in black, who is a Darth Vader type professor, who utilizes a very strong force to collect the data from the branch hospital. And may the force be with us, they say. And these data are immediately going to the publication, to the Nature Genetics whatsoever. However, they never acknowledge those who actually collected the informed consent or data curation, data processing. Right now, it's time to respect the data scientist and the data engineer, besides those who are utilizing a force. We need to make a different arrangement for that. So I would like to show you the one of the challenge for us, how we can avoid balkanization and how we can save the patients. And we started up one interesting project, which I would like to show you today in the rest of the time. That is IRUD. That is an initiative on rare and undiagnosed diseases. So it is also called orphan disease, the monogenic rare diseases. Okay? And we are also challenging in cancer research too, but I would like to skip this data. So, at the beginning of AMED, I decided to start up irud, and we determined several criteria for register the patients and families. First of all, we just focus on the outpatient department. And if there is any undiagnosed patients, so you are welcome. And also, collaboration with a non-bio researcher. Non-bio means intractable diseases. And in Japan, the Japanese government is very, very nice because they started up a law by Ministry of Health and Welfare, and which allows us to make a good research in order to save the patients. It was almost 50 years. 50 years ago, the government determined the law. And according to the law, the government allocated huge money for saving these patients. But the problem is a way. Problem is a mechanism. And we set up the, if there is any patients who are undiagnosed, who have been undiagnosed at least for over 6 months, okay, you can come. And also, we pay attention to the phenotype rather than genotype. Multiple organ symptoms. If there is any multiple organ symptoms, we can allow, yes, because in our body, one single gene determines not only the function of the brain, but also from those in the other organs. So the one gene disruption is good enough to induce a different phenotype if we carefully watch what is happening in the patients. It's really interesting to know that in the rare diseases, almost 40% of the patients suffered from the neuropsychiatric disorders. And interestingly, that they are all visit the outpatient department of the professional of the pediatric neuropsychiatry disorders. However, these doctors sometimes overlook the other symptoms, other phenotypes, which happening in the bone or soft bone, hematopoietic system whatsoever. So that, and the Japanese physicians are very careful, and these different phenotypes can be described in electric health record very nicely. And we are checking these multiple organ symptoms. And also, we check the genetic disorders by questionnaire, very careful questionnaire, and choose very carefully the patients. So I'd like to show you how we can make up a diagnosis. So this is an example of the one patient who is 19 years old, who suffered from developmental disorder at the beginning of childhood. And we checked the exome analysis. You can see here, the exome means 1% of the whole genome information. That is good enough to induce the, how many? It's 126,000 different variants. That include benign variant, which is not responsible for diseases. But hopefully there might be at least one pathogenic variant. So the procedure is to choose just one variant among these huge number of variants. In order to do that, the bioinformatics is very useful to focus. And the Japanese database in Kyoto University, which contain 1,000 Japanese typical variants list, it is good enough. And finally, judgment by doctor of what? That is a phenotype. And if we can find out the series of phenotype, and if these series of phenotypes are perfectly matches with the different patients, we are suspecting, okay, that these two patients suffered from the same disease, and if there is any same variant between these two independent patients, so perhaps we can specify the pathogenic variant. That's how we can make a diagnosis. But this process takes too much time. But interestingly, the Tohoku Medical Megabank, which is operated by the Tohoku University, and they are very kind to provide over 4,000 healthy Japanese controls. So that there are many benign variant data. So we can easily use this data to subtract the candidate pathogenic gene. That actually happened in Japan. That's a very important data sharing process. So I would like to show you the phenotype. The patient one who is living in Tokyo and 19 years old and suffering from the developmental disorder, together with hemorrhagic tendency with unknown reason. But because of the further analysis, we find out the platelet number is going down. Because of this, she suffered from the hemorrhagic tendency. And the careful attention to the smear sample that clearly indicated the giant platelet. And interestingly, at least in Japan, the national examination for medical license, we study hard at that time only. And actually, many people believe the Bernard-Soulier syndrome, that is one of the rare disease, that causes the one and only giant platelet symptom. But Bernard-Soulier syndrome never suffer from developmental disorder or joint dislocation whatsoever. So this is a different disease. And you can see here the curved finger and the swollen leg. And unfortunately, this patient's parents, they are perfectly normal. And this is a de novo mutation. And interestingly, at the very beginning of IRAD meeting for case matching, there is one of the audience in the meeting who are coming from Osaka. He raised a hand. I have ever seen such patient in my hand many years ago. And fortunately, in this case, the patient too, who is living in Osaka, and they are clearly, phenotypes are so nicely matched. And these two physicians of these patients immediately decided to go to the whole genome analysis, actually. So, and as a result of genome analysis, the CDC42 mutation occurs in both patients, exactly the same mutation in a different independent two patients. So that is a case match. It is very beautiful. And if you go to the PubMed, this is a huge database in the NIH. CDC42 is a molecule which is responsible for the neural network and the synapse formation. And this is an adhesion molecule. But, it's really interesting to know the number of such papers are 6,000. And all these papers just pay attention to the role in the neuropsychiatry systems. However, there is one and only paper which was published 3 years ago. This molecule is expressed in megakaryocyte. And now we understand maybe this molecule is responsible for regulating the exact normal size of platelet to be released from the megakaryocyte. And the disruption of this gene causes the giant platelet and the diseases. That is really interesting. So the AMED right now are spending almost 2.5 years and making a very excellent database such as the irud exchange. That is the name of the database, and which include more than 4,000 families data. And among Japan, we have already discovered 19 different diseases by case match. And interestingly, the National Institute of Health and Lithuania, this is a small country in the near Baltic Sea, they ask us to cooperate to use this irud exchange to increase the number of the diagnosed patients. And in Japan, the 380 families are waiting for the second case. That is called N of 1 problem, N of 1 patient. If you can find one more patient, so they can be diagnosed. And more importantly, so Tohoku Medical Megabank helped greatly. And another important thing is after we start irud program, we have already had the over 1,000 undiagnosed patients who were diagnosed within 6 months after AMED registration. That is great. So that indicates not only perfectly undiagnosed disease, but also those who suffered from the non-rare disease, but the diagnosis is difficult. They are also undiagnosed from the viewpoint of the patients. And these patients can be diagnosed by using this type of systems. So networking. So many years ago, the rare disease budgets are allocated to the red circle. There is a very strong imperial courage. But right now, we are allocating the money to the blue dot only when they have undiagnosed patients. And actually, the size of the blue circle indicates the number of the patients. And if there is a patient, we can allocate the money. But sometimes the researcher always asks us to, so give me the money, and then we will diagnose. We say, it is not true, We can, first, you have to find out the undiagnosed patient, and then we can allocate the money. That's what we are doing right now. So, the outcome of irud, I would like to expand to the foreign countries. And we participate in IRDIRC. This is an International Rare Disease Research Consortium in Europe. And they have a very nice database, OpenCourseWare. And if we combine the irud exchange together with the OpenCourseWare, so I'm sorry this is written in Japanese, but blue circle indicate the result of the Japan, the irud exchange, and the red circle indicate the OpenCourseWare. So actually, there are 280 patients who are diagnosed because of the presence of OpenCourseWare rather than Japanese database. That actually happened. So the global data sharing is very, very excellent. Right now, GDPR, that there is a strong regulation of the privacy issue. And actually, such exchange of the data is going to generate the problem. And everything is totally stopped right now. But we need to overcome. How we can overcome the privacy issue. This is very important. And different from Europe, the United States are very open to facilitate the data sharing. And I'm very happy to have the MOC with the NIH hospital under the initiative of the Francis Collins. He is very open-minded. You can see here, the left side, this is a left side indicates the patient in the NIH hospital, and the right side indicates the patients in the irud, Anglo-Saxon and Japanese patients. And each physician who take care of these patients immediately decided to go to the genome analysis. So what is happening? This is interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, there is no answer. Actually, that is a case match. And also, I would like to finally show you the very good example under the collaboration between Lithuania and Japan. As you know, the Lithuania is a very small country which has only 3 million people. And they experienced a revolution from the USSR in 1991. And interestingly, in this year, the USSR destroyed all the paper medical record for Lithuanian people. Everything was totally burned out. Because of this, the Lithuanian pediatrician has nothing to do to check the detailed family history, because it was totally destroyed. And actually, there is one pediatrician who is also the ambassador from the Lithuania in Tokyo. Right now, he is a very nice friend of mine. And he asked me how to use the irud exchange database. Okay, you have European database, and which is much better than the Japanese one. But he never answered correctly, but I really need your help, he said. And I decided to do. And actually, what is happening? I'm sorry, this is the list of complicated name of monogenic rare diseases. But we have a very nice success. And one of such disease, I have nothing to do to exactly pronounce this name. But this is a deficiency, the deficiency of the riboflavin transporter. Because of this gene disruption, the boy suffered from the muscle weakness, systemic muscle weakness. And right after the birth, he needs the support of the mechanical respiration, because nothing to do to support the automated respiration. And also, despite 3 years old, he cannot stand. He cannot raise a hand because of the unknown reason. And by case matching between Japanese data and Lithuania, we have a very nice case match. Unfortunately, the data collected from Japanese patients works very well, but the Japanese patients was already passed away. But the genome analysis data is still here. And that data exactly matches with this boy. And that's how we can make an exact diagnosis. And also, that we decided to start up treatment of excess dose of oral riboflavin. And as a result of treatment, within the first 6 months, right now, he never needs the mechanical respiration device. And he is going to stand up. This is a one and only successful case. In most cases, unfortunately, the rare disease cannot be cured at present moment. But we are so encouraged to find out such situation. And finally, what is necessary for data sharing, particularly the global data sharing? I would like to summarize up in the end. When we think about geopolitical viewpoint of Lithuania, you can see here, I'm not familiar with world history. That's why I chose the science to enter the university. But now I learn much what is happening in Europe many, many years ago. It is very difficult to understand where Lithuania is. You can see here the Lithuanians that indicate those who are living in here. No country at this time. However, after that, they are becoming very big. They are forming a big territory. And the Poland-Lithuania coalition, it's very big, which cross over the Baltic Sea to Black Sea, the one of the biggest country, becoming big. However, after that, Russian Empire invade, and Bismarck, Napoleon, whatsoever, and Hitler, they are invading, and the countries are disappeared. Even after the World War II, the USSR invade, and they have to speak Russian instead of Lithuanian. And after this, you can see here that Lithuania as a very small country here. And they have only 3 million people, nothing to do to diagnose for the rare diseases. But under the global cooperation and the data sharing, we can do it. But the most important things to facilitate the data sharing is a trust among the different sectors, and how we can foster the mutual trust to facilitate the data sharing. That is my take-home message. So finally, I would like to introduce a short poem which is coming from England. They are suffering from Brexit right now, but this is very interesting. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of a continent. This is very interesting, you know. Right now, they are not a part of a continent, but many, many years ago, the UK is something like that, a part of the main. Next one is very important message. Any man's death diminishes me because I'm involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. In Japanese, the tagatame ni kane wa naru. It tolls for thee. If somebody passed away, we have to think about that person, even when we never see each other. Okay? And this kind of feeling requires that global data sharing, I believe. Thank you very much for attention.